right, thank you. Good evening, everyone. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Programs and Services Committee. It is Wednesday, September 3rd. We're being audio and video recorded. Present at the beginning of the meeting from the committee, I'm Josh Krinsman, Chair of the Committee, Councilor at Large from Ward 4, Vice Chair of the Committee, Councilor Bill Humphrey from Ward 5, and Councilor John Oliver from Ward 1, also a Councilor at Large. I expect that we'll be joined by other councilors soon. I'll note that we have the acting city clerk, Cassidy Flynn. We have Chief Operating Officer Jonathan Yo, and Commissioner of Parks, Rec, and Culture, Cole Banks. And boom, we have a fourth member of the committee, Councilor Stephen Farrell from Ward 8. Okay, we also have Katie Holden, Lauren Oliveira from the clerk's office as well. Okay, the first item we have is item 259-25. This is a request to set the early voting hours for the November 4th municipal election. Cassie and Lauren, are you guys going to present this? Go ahead.
Yes, so we're here to present the recommendation for the early voting dates for our November 4th election. Those dates are stated in the docket item, but I'll read them out loud now. So that's starting Saturday, October 25th, which would be 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. Sunday, October 26th from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday, October 27th from 8:30 to 8 p.m. Tuesday, October 28th from 8:30 to 5, and Wednesday, October 29th from 8:30 to 5. These are very similar to the hours that we used 2 years ago in the last municipal election. The only change we made was on our longer night. We opened at 9 a.m., but I thought it made more sense to stay uniform with the weekday hours, and so we're going to open at 8:30 each weekday. But that is our presentation. If you have any questions, we're here to answer them.
Thank you, Cassie. Appreciate that. I'll note that we've been joined by Councilor Julian Maliki, our fifth member of the committee. Appreciate that. Those do look like the hours we've gone with in the past. I actually appreciate the longer day. I think that makes sense to start at 8:30 as well. Do any of the committee members have any questions?
I do not.
Great. Can I get a motion?
Motion to approve said hours.
Councilor Oliver has moved approval. Any discussion on that motion? All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? 5-0. Nailed it, Cassidy. Thank you. And Lauren, appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. The next item we have is item 234-25. This is the appointment of Susan Lyon to the Urban Tree Commission. Susan, what we normally do, and the rest of you who are here for an appointment as well, let me say it's basically the same for all of our appointees. What we do is give you an opportunity, maybe 2 minutes if you want, to just sort of tell us why it is that you're interested in the appointment that you've been put forward for. We have read your resume. Your resume was included in the packet. You've probably seen the materials that we have, so we do know a little bit about you. But if you want to talk for 2 minutes and just tell us, why it is that you're interested or anything we may not have seen from the resume, happy to do that. Then we'll take some questions and move to a vote. So, Ms. Lyon? You're still on mute. Are you able to unmute? Great.
No. Wow, what was that noise? That made a strange noise just then. Hopefully that's not a bad sign on my end. So yes, thank you for the opportunity to be here and to possibly be a member of the Urban Tree Commission. I've been interested in trees all my life, but professionally, I have been working really in an office, not outside in the natural world. And I worked for Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection for 20 years and worked on implementing a ride sharing regulation that was designed to increase carpooling and taking transit for certain size employers. And also I was involved in the last 5 years with doing a lot of grant work, getting grants from the federal government and from the state to reduce diesel pollution. And that was around $7 million. And then we got involved with the Toyota settlement, where Massachusetts received $75 million implement electric vehicles and to do work with diesel engines some more. And so that was very rewarding. And I did that for a number of years, and then I retired. And after I retired, I went to the Audubon Naturalist Program, because at that point I was very sick of being inside in an office, and I really wanted to get out there in nature. And that was a wonderful program. And so that sort of led to getting involved with Newton. I've been a resident of Newton for 30 years now, and really love the city. And I really love all the trees in the city and the parks. And so I started getting involved with the Newton Conservators. And then through that, I heard about this vacancy on the Urban Tree Commission, and thought that I have a good background. I feel like I see trees as, of course, beautiful and shady, but I also think they're a real source of providing equity. You know, neighborhoods that have good trees usually have higher quality of life, especially for areas that, so I just have a general interest in that. And I'm interested in hearing everything about trees. So it's seems like an interesting thing to do, and I hope you consider me. I do have a degree in environmental policy too, that I wanted to, a master's degree, and that I wanted to point out.
Great, thank you. I don't know if it was just me. You cut out a little bit a couple times, but it sort of cut up. So I did catch everything you said, but just aware that was happening.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Well, I didn't say anything probably that was different from what was on the resume and the application.
No, I think we got it all.
Okay.
Interesting. You were in rideshare before rideshare meant something very different when it actually meant sharing rides than what it means today, you know?
And, I think it was successful, but then I think Uber came along, and that just made the highways that much more crowded.
Councillor Humphrey.
Thank you. I'm happy to move approval. A very qualified application. Glad to get these kind of applications. I assume that I'm able to vote on this. She's my next door neighbor around the corner,
Yeah.
a butter to an abutter, so I don't think I'm prohibited from voting yes on that. But anyway.
I don't think you are. Okay, I see another hand. So I assume it was making it, well, Councilor Humphrey's made a motion. We can have discussion on that motion. We can also have questions. So let me just mention that we've been joined by Councilor Baker from Ward 8, another member of the committee. Councilor Farrell, do you have a question?
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate it. And thank you, Ms. Lyon, for your interest in serving with the City of Newton in this commission. We need good people to get involved. I have a couple of specific questions, if I may. Can you help me? Your engagement with Mass Audubon, can you tell us why they believe that in order to save forests, we must do logging in those forests?
Well, my experience with Audubon was I was not an employee, but well, I guess we just didn't go down that road. The naturalist program really take you out each week, and you learn about trees, you learn about mushrooms. So we didn't really discuss a lot of policy issues like that.
Okay.
Probably, maybe they're trying to weed out invasive trees that may be affecting the general environment, is what I would think, without having read it.
Thank you. A little more specific than, as it's my understanding that the Newton Conservators opposed the current tree ordinance when it was implemented in 2024. Can you speak to that?
Well, I'm a relatively new director of that. I was appointed about 10 months ago. And I actually wasn't aware that they didn't support it. But I just from speaking to one other member about it, in general, they thought perhaps that the penalties may have been very severe for homeowners that couldn't afford to pay into a fund rather than replace the trees. That's only from speaking to one other director, and so I can't really speak for the whole board.
Okay, I have a couple more questions, Chair, if it's okay.
Recommended it.
In your work on this commission, and in looking at the tree ordinance, do you believe that 1 and 2 families should continue to be exempted from the tree ordinance?
Do I believe that families should be continue to be
One and
exempted
two
from the
family-
tree
1 and
ordinance?
2 family properties, they should be exempted from the tree ordinance.
Well, they're not exempted from them. They are part of the ones that do have to comply with it. Are you talking about ones that are exempted when the tree is injured?
No,
Or
just in terms of, there is an effort to exempt trees, continue to exempt trees from the ordinance if they're on 1 and 2 family properties, home. Do you believe?
okay,
Do you believe that should, let me ask, do you believe all properties should be included in Newton's tree ordinance, that there should be no exemptions?
I think they could all be included, but there could be ways where they could have
Where they could-
exemptions for special circumstances.
Okay. Do you have any sense of circumstances? Let's just say, for instance, somebody wants to build an ADU and it's going to be 900 square feet and it will cost them $350 a square foot to build it, which comes close to, $400,000, let's say. And do you think that kind of, and yet they claim they can't afford to pay the fee?
400,000 what? I just didn't.
Well, when you build an ADU and you want to take down a tree, there are some people who will
Right.
say that if the family claims that it can't afford to pay the fee to remove the tree and pay into the fund, but yet they're going to spend $350,000, $400,000 to build an ADU. Don't you think? I'm trying to understand what the exclusion is in your mind.
Councilor Farrell, I
Yes.
just want to say, it's not really the Urban Tree Commission's domain
What-
to implement or enforce the tree ordinance. That's really the
But they
city council and the tree warden.
But Chair, they have an opinion about this, is that correct? And I'm trying to understand how this Urban Commission is in fact going to be supportive or not of our tree ordinance.
From what I understand, it's basically a recommendation capacity, that we don't actually have enforcement capacity or regulatory authority to do anything. It's more that the way the commission may influence people
Right.
and make
My understanding was
recommendations.
it's more the recommendations on the selection of trees, the approval of species, things like that.
And
Councilor
other
Maliki,
issues-
you wanna weigh in?
I'm sorry, Chair. It's just, I think there
Yeah.
are other issues that they can influence on.
Let me help out here. So it is the Urban Tree Commission did weigh in on I think early on in the process, when the tree ordinance was being revised. I don't recall to what extent we got into specific elements of it. Certainly, I happened to meet Sue earlier this afternoon at the BioBlitz, and as I was saying, Urban Tree Commission, no budget, no sort of power to enforce things or pass rules or anything like that, but it does have a sort of a advisory role, and certainly, helpful to get the opinions, especially if there's consensus on the commission when the next round of tweaks or whatever we do to the tree ordinance happens. But I wouldn't expect Sue to necessarily have memorized what's in the ordinance right now.
So Councilor Farrell, go ahead. You want to wrap up your questions?
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate the time. And thank you, Ms. Lyon, again, for volunteering to be on this commission. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Baker.
Thank you. I just appreciate your willingness to serve. And I'm happy to represent Ward 8 anytime, but I'm not actually Ward 7. So,
Oh, did I say 8? I'm sorry.
no, I'm honored, but I do want to mention that I'm having trouble with my video and I'm blanking in and out. So I may try and turn it off so I can hear you all clearly. And if just Councilor Farrell, if you can get a little closer to the mic, it would help me. So that's, but in the meantime, thank you, Ms. Lyon, for willingness to serve.
Thank you.
All right, so Councilor Humphrey has moved approval. Any further discussion on the motion? All right, seeing none. All those in favor of approving Ms. Lyon, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Councilor Farrell, is that an abstention?
You're muted.
Yes. And it's
Okay. Okay, so that's 4-0 to 1. Okay, Katie? Okay. Ms. Lyon, thank you. We're not offended if you close your
Thank you.
computer and leave us for the night. You're certainly welcome to stick around, but we're not offended if you leave. We know people have other things to do.
I think because Counselor Baker joined, it's 5-0 to 1.
You're right. I apologize. 5-0 to 1. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, the next item is item 232-25. This is the appointment of Jesse King to the Commission on Disability. Jesse, I believe I saw you here earlier. Great. So
Hello,
again,
here I
same thing.
am.
If you want to, give us a couple minutes of why you're interested in serving on the Commission on Disability. We did read your statement, but you can tell us anything you'd like.
All right, sure. So, some introductory stuff. My name is Jesse King. I'm 24. I've lived in Newton all of my life. So I'm autistic as well as ADHD, mild OCD, a whole melting pot of things. And so some of the things that I've done in was it 2023? Yes, 2023. I work at a place called Newton Theater Company, and we did something called the Neurodivergent Monologue Project. It's basically imagine like mini TED Talks, but about neurodivergency. And we plan on doing a physical disabilities one. And disabilities, being autistic is a issue very close to my heart. And especially when it comes to things like education and children. And there's a lot of things I do in the community to sort of help out with that. Oftentimes in my workplace, I act as sort of an aide. And I also think it's worth mentioning that I believe on the Commission on Disability, there's only 2 people who represent autism, and one of them, I believe, is the mother of an autistic child. So is that, and you read some stuff on my resume. I'm no stranger to volunteering, including in sort of disability capacity. And I also I don't know if any of you are familiar with Understanding Our Differences, but I'm sort of their go-to autism speaker. So I don't know if any of you were at the Understanding Our Differences Spring Benefit this past year, but I was the key speaker there. And yeah, disabilities are an issue very close to my heart, and especially autism, and especially with everything going on in the country. I feel like I just really want to do my best and help out where I can.
Great. Thank you, Jesse. Appreciate it. And it is an impressive amount of work and volunteering you've already done. So
Thank you.
let me see if there are any questions from the committee. Anyone, or Councilor Farrell, did you want to make a motion of any sort? I think you just muted yourself before you spoke.
Sorry. Jesse, thank you very much for your willingness to continue to volunteer in so many capacities, but I'm very impressed with your background. I think you'll be an outstanding member, and I would move to accept this nomination.
All right, thank you, Counselor Farrell. Counselor Humphrey?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just going to briefly say, thank you, Jesse, for applying. I would recommend keep an open mind as you join the commission. I think some of the folks that you might not know yet may actually have more similar backgrounds to what you were thinking of joining as and offering. And there's some young folks that have been on the commission and definitely things like that. So I think you won't be alone on that front, and I think you'll probably like a lot of the folks that are on there right now because they're very passionate and hard workers on these issues.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Humphrey. Any other discussion on the motion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor of approving Mr. King, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you. Jesse and Ms. Lyon, both of you should know that this will come before the full city council on the 15th, where you don't need to be present, but we expect that there will be no problems and the full council will approve the appointment.
All right,
Thank you.
awesome.
The
Thank you,
next item on our agenda is item 231-25. That's the appointment of Elijah Lavin to the Human Rights Commission. Is Elijah Lavin here? I thought
I'm
Eli.
here.
Okay,
It says
you go by
Eli.
Eli? Do you go by Eli?
Yes, Eli or Elijah, either is fine.
Okay, great. So again, same thing for you. Let me give you an opportunity to tell us why you're interested in serving on the Human Rights Commission, and then we'll open it up to the committee.
Yeah, my name is Eli Lavin. I use he, him pronouns. I've lived in Newton for the past 3 years. I want to serve on the commission because I was the first person ever at my school to ever come out as a transgender man. Which I then spent the next 3 years fighting for rights for, which I'm very passionate about, and also I'm bisexual too. I, for my full-time job, work at Out Metro West, which is an LGBT youth center, and I'm very passionate about that work. I have been with kids through their happiest moments and their most terrible moments, going through coming out to their families and existing in their lives and their schools and their towns. And I'm a white man, but I also serve on a racial equity team to try to make everything as equal as possible and try to find different ways that we can serve people of color. And I'm also very passionate about like immigration. One of my best friends and my roommates is an immigrant from El Salvador, and he is a wonderful human being, and I love that he is here, and I want to make sure that Newton is a place that everyone of every race, ethnicity, sexual identity, gender identity, and everything else is welcome and accepted.
Excellent. Thank you. Appreciate you volunteering. Let me see if there are any questions from any members of the committee. Counselor Humphrey.
I think is our Ward 2 member not here tonight?
Counselor Mickley is not here tonight. For the edification of our members and our viewers, Counselor Mickley's wife, I believe, is overdue, and he is supporting her and with her, and we're hoping that any minute now there's another little Mickley.
Okay, in that case, I'm happy to make the motion to approve. Eli, thank you so much for applying for this. I think you're absolutely right about, making sure we not only have this representation, but, people in the community saying, let's make and keep this a community that continues to be welcoming to trans folks. I think that's especially important this year when there's so many politicians who are running for office against trans people, even right here in Newton this year. I think it's important that we have people in positions like this on the commission to say, that's not the type of community we are, and we reject that.
Thank you.
Counselor Humphrey has moved approval. I see no other comments. I will comment that I couldn't agree with you more, Counselor Humphrey. In my day job, I deal with healthcare, and I've seen part of our businesses in New Hampshire. New Hampshire passed laws against trans youth, prohibiting surgeries, prohibiting treatment, prohibiting gender affirming care for minors. So it's been really disturbing to watch some of the stuff that's going on around the country. So like you, Councilor Humphrey, I like that certainly our Human Rights Commission supports the rights of transgender individuals, including the youth. So I'm more than pleased to vote in support of this nomination. Anyone else, any comments? All right. All those in favor of the appointment of Eli Lavin to the Human Rights Commission, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great. Thank you. Eli, like the others, this will go before the full City Council on the 15th, where I don't expect any problems or concerns, but if you want to watch that night, you can watch. You don't need to be there. Okay. Thank you for spending some time with us tonight. All right, the next item we have is item 373-24. This is the item requesting a discussion with Parks, Rec, and Culture about restroom facilities at City Fields. As folks remember, I think we've met on this a couple of times, had sort of asked for some follow-up from Commissioner Banks. My understanding, I believe Commissioner Banks submitted a memo that I think we looked at, or I think came either yesterday or today, either way. It's within 48 hours. So I just want to make a motion to suspend the rules to allow that to be considered. I know it's just a discussion, but I want to allow that to be considered by the committee in our discussion. So I will move to suspend the rules to allow that. Any discussion on that motion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. With that, let me turn it over to you, Commissioner Banks. I know you're here. I think that's why you're here, right? Just making sure. Okay, good to see you. Please tell us what, and let me quickly mention that we've been joined by Councilor Bixby, not a member of the committee, but Councilor Bixby, a very welcome addition to Programs and Services here. Welcome, Councilor Bixby. Commissioner Banks.
Hi, good evening. Yes, so we were last together before the very busy summer season, a successful season at Parks Recreation with great programs and aquatics and everything going on here in the city. Good to be back to continue on with some of the details. I did provide the memo, so thank you for recognizing that piece, and I didn't want to go over everything in it. But just to highlight a little bit of what we were discussing the last time I was here, we did put together a pilot program for several sites. I've highlighted in the memo the sites where we have added or continued our portable toilet program that is run through Parks, Recreation, and Culture. Those sites are mostly aquatic sites, our splash park facilities, our pool, or sites that have large amount of programming going on, such as the canoe and kayak program at Nehanton. So those are outlined. We had some questions about just noting, we spoke early on in this conversation about our athletic sport groups who manage many portable toilets that are out different locations in different seasons where they need them most for their large sport activities. We talked about putting together an inventory list and posting this on our website. So I have included that in the memo. Significant amount of locations. I would just point out that those change from time to time. If a sport group moves from one field to another, they may transfer where they're going to place those toilets. They do a great job managing placing. They work with our grounds maintenance team for locations and how to best set those in the parks and close to our athletic fields. So that is here, and we have also posted this list on our website, and we will keep this up to date as we work with our sport groups. So if you go to the parks website, this is under our facilities section. Happy to send out a link to anybody if you're searching for it, but it should be pretty accessible for people to get to. The other area that we spoke about at the last meeting was talking about some of our facilities. So either our existing restroom facilities, building of facilities, or managing custodians with facilities. So I had said that I would touch base with Commissioner Morse, Commissioner of Public Buildings, We have discussed this. He actually thought he was going to be here this evening to help answer questions. He did have a personal issue come up, and we knew that he was going to not be here tonight. So that's why we just wanted to make sure we had really good information in this memo for you, detailing some of the costs of custodians, and also, you know, opening and closing buildings, or even building new buildings. So some of that is outlined in here, but we can certainly get questions back to him as well. So that's really the highlights of what we've worked on, provided here, and updated to our website. I would note, you know, I think we are very much in support of wanting to have restroom facilities, have worked to, over time, sort of expand our availability of restrooms. And it is something that even in this past budget round, we were very happy to receive additional custodial service for our two largest community centers in Upper Falls and Lower Falls. So adding on that cleaning service for those buildings that get regularly used will be a really great improvement. And when we do get asked about the cleanings in those buildings quite often. So I think that'll be really helpful as well. So that's just another operating budget area that we were able to address with the restroom services. Happy to answer questions or, you know, get more information if there's further details needed.
Thank you, Commissioner Banks. Are there questions from any committee members? Councilor Maliki?
Thanks. I'm just curious, the inventory of restrooms and the months they're open, is it literally like whole months? It's not, you know, like November until Thanksgiving, or November, you know, whatever. And it starts first of March. Is it that?
It can be a little bit sport specific on the seasons, but mainly the spring and fall seasons are the busiest for the sports. So getting started in, you know, if it's not in March, you know, certainly by April, most of the groups are out there. And then, you know, many of the busy sites do have summer either clinics or things going on in the fields. And that is when we have our restrooms, such as at Albemarle, open as well. So it's not always exactly like the first of the month to the end of the month. It could be, you know, they start their season in the third week of March, and that's when they place the toilets. So that's kind of why the groups like having that management piece, because they can sort of control their costs and place them at the sites where they know they're going to have a large amount of players that will need access to that. Does that answer the question?
Well, it was more that if somebody was like referring to the list on the website to find out if a field was going to have a restroom, if they went over there, can they rely on it? And
yeah, I don't think you could say like May 1st to June 30th would always be there, and things do change season to season. So, you know, we can certainly keep this up, asking our groups to put this information in, but I could see things changing, you know, depending on what they're.
Yeah, I think it would be good to either, you know, put you know, the actual dates when you have them, or else say at the top somewhere, you know, dates are approximate or something like that, so people know to check.
You all set, Councilor Maliki?
Yep, I think so.
Are you in the chamber?
Yes. I was coming from somewhere else. This was closer than home. I don't know how to turn on the lights, so I'm in the dark.
There are switches in the back of the room, but that's okay. I just feel bad. You're sitting there in the dark. Looks like I'm watching what's the movie in the forest? The
Dracula? Or...
No, I'll think of it. Councilor Oliver.
Thank you, Chair. Now I'm intrigued as to what movie you are referring to. But I think there's a lot of really good information in here, and I missed this earlier today. So I'm just kind of reading along as we're kind of discussing it, kind of studying the plane as it's flying, so to speak. But I did get, I do have just a couple of questions around so right now the sports groups, or many of these placements are through the sports groups. I heard that right, correctly?
Yes.
Or correct, I should say. Great. So then they're tied to their seasons for the most part, like we, like you were just saying, right? And the dates are going to change a little bit given their own seasons. How does that work for the sports groups when, like, do they? Because I remember having a conversation a ways back with one of the guys who ran Mustangs football, and they didn't know if they had to lock the restroom, weren't allowed to lock the restroom. This was a little while ago. I'm just curious, how does that work now?
So the portable units that the sports groups place, they don't lock them. So it's not like come to your practice or your games for that particular day and then like zip tie it closed after. They place them for the season. They book the amount of cleanings, once a week or twice a week, depending on the use and activity during that time frame. And they are available to, public use, other groups. And we do share this information between the groups. And the schools are also involved in this. So the high schools place some portable units as part of this. So they kind of discuss, if there's going to be a shared field, which a lot of these are, one sport group or the school will say, okay, we'll place it here. And another group will take the other location. So they kind of share the load of that and share the access to it as well. I'm not aware of any being locked. I think there was one situation a couple summers ago where the one that is at Newton Center was locked during one of our outdoor concerts. But we just worked with the clay tennis court contractor had locked it up, and we just discussed making sure that stays open so it's available.
Okay, and how does it, and this question is born of complete ignorance here. How does it, like, are these things insured? Like, because they sit there, right, in a field, like when there's nobody there, and I'm just kind of curious, like, what happens in the case where, there's some hooligan activity, and perhaps one of these properties is damaged?
Yeah, they do have insurance, and you can opt in for additional insurance with the company if you choose to do that. That does increase the price. We have, in the case of the ones that the city has provided, and I know in some of the, like, Little League had some vandalized at Albemarle, and that's just a cost to whoever has ordered and placed it. So typically somebody will report the vandalism to the city. We will work with the group who has placed it at that site. They'll contact the company, and there's usually a charge to either reset it if it's just like tipped over, which is typically equal to like coming out for a cleaning, the same type of charge. So they reset it, they clean it out, and it's good to go. In really, more vandalized cases, we actually just had one that was set on fire at Albemarle. I think it was right before the summer started. You just pay for the damages to that unit, and it's fairly reasonable. Like, I don't think they, are trying to put their customers out completely when it happens. So you kind of have an option. You can take the extra insurance, or you can just pay and deal with it if it happens. The Albemarle one has been a little bit of a problem. I don't know why. It's kind of tucked into
it's kind of in that
greenery bush
trees,
area. Right? And I think it's just back in the field enough. Hopefully the new project with some more safety lighting and park lighting, we're hopeful that will be, just a lot more people enjoying it and better lit in the evenings.
Great. And then I also thank you for that. I also did hear that, is it starting next season, next year? I don't know, maybe even, now in the fall, that we're now we need to, or we're required to use ADA accessible porta potties? Is that?
We worked on putting that together a few years ago, and we've been pretty consistently sending that messaging out to everybody who's placing these. They haven't all been turned over to accessible units. So The way that it works is if you have one unit at a site, that unit needs to be an accessible unit. These are like a little bit larger. They have a wider opening door, just more space where somebody could wheel a wheelchair in, or use it with a walking device or something along those lines. And then we also make sure the placement is right along a pathway, so that it's accessible. If you have more than one unit at a site, then typically only one of the units would need to be accessible, and the others could be a standard unit. They're a little bit more
Okay.
expensive, but yes, we've been asking the groups also for special events outdoors, when there's like a road race or something, we've been asking that those be made to be accessible units, and that is sort of the city's policy and requirement of ADA.
And so the sports groups have been kind of amenable to the increase in cost, whatever that
Yeah,
might be.
I think it's
in
been
ADA and a regular.
a little bit hit or miss. I can't say for certain that they've all transitioned to that, but we've been discussing it for a couple of years, and I think they've probably been adjusting their budgets to be able to, at their largest locations, provide that, and then start to feather in more and more of these.
Interesting. Okay, that's all for me. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I don't see any other hands. I'll just ask. So it looked to me, if I read the memo correctly, Commissioner Banks, that the cost estimate was about $32,400 for a per portable toilet. If we wanted to look at fields or other places where there currently aren't any facilities and we were interested in setting up those facilities, annually, the cost would be about $32,400. Is that accurate?
So I went back and forth with Josh a little bit on this one. I think his numbers were taking if there was 10 sites, and then he broke down per site for having a building that already exists, the cost of adding custodian, attendant, bathroom supplies, those things. That was the 32,400 number, was per facility for an existing bathroom that's already built in one of our parks, and keeping that open and cleaned and in nice working order. And then I think he compared that to 10 locations for portable toilets, to say that it is a lower cost to provide the portable toilets, and that was at about 65,000. And we are basing that on the city's rates that we've been getting for those 6 sites that I listed at the beginning of the memo, for a season, 10 months, 9 months, 10 months, removing it during the winter, but having it there year round.
Okay. The 6 sites that you mentioned, the pilot program,
Mm-hmm.
what was sort of that's coming up, or that was done for this past year?
Yeah, so this is what was done for this past year, and specifically this summer, where we had a lot of programs. We really tried to, well, first of all, I mean, we did have this discussion during the budget season, and we're able to allocate a little bit. We really tried to focus on our aquatics areas, and then other programmatic areas. So if we have a revenue source, so the farmers market, for example, was one where we were able to place one. Cold Springs has some for the athletic fields, but this was another placement closer to the farmers market, utilizing the revenue that comes in from the farmers market vendors to pay for that. So that's, we chose sites that either had a revenue source or were those aquatic sites where we were able to do that in the operating budget with the aquatics funds.
Okay, that makes sense. And you sort of allude to that in the memo, but I didn't understand exactly what that meant, but that makes sense now. I know the summer just ended, or the summer season, sort of just ended, but was there any thought to how successful or not successful this pilot was? What, did we find that the facilities were used? Were they used more than we thought they would be used? Less? Was there more cleanup than we thought? Or,
Yeah, I mean, the ones that are Crystal Lake and the new splash park in Upper Falls, we sort of knew. Crystal Lake, we did a pilot with a friends group, and they funded it the first year. So this was the first year that the city took it over. We did know going into that we would have pretty high use, and went with daily cleanings once we got into that high season. Those two facilities, I mean, we had a very hot, sunny summer, and those two facilities just saw, great amount of use. We also just got our first water bill for the new Upper Falls Splash Park, and it was higher than we had, originally thought. We have push button start, so the water only runs when somebody's there using it, but basically the funnest thing to do is to run around and push every push button and turn on all the water features. And it was, busy for all of the amount of hours that we had it running. So yeah, those two facilities really were very, very busy. The other facilities we sort of have on, either once a week. So the farmer's market one is cleaned, right before the farmer's market happens on Tuesday. And that works pretty well. So yeah, I don't think there was any big surprises. I think if you place them there, people will use them. It's just, you need to make sure they're clean. And as was mentioned earlier, if something gets damaged, that we have funding to be able to respond to that right away. So it's, just limited right now, what we can provide. And I think that same thing has been occurring with our buildings, with the custodial and supplies. And I put some of that in here too, just, it's not only the budget for the custodians, but the capacity that our custodian team has. So they're maxed out with the amount of city buildings. And so adding on some of these satellite locations is just not possible. They don't have enough hours to go around. And again, so that was one that we tried to fix for the two community centers, and adding on, it was a part-time custodian that is going to be shared with DPW, which will also do some of the yards where our city staff who are out, working the grounds will have additional custodian services in those buildings, and then putting these two, very well used buildings onto the rotation for like regular custodial service. So that's kind of the challenges with the buildings, and maybe thinking about the budgeting for that over time.
Yeah, I know in the memo was mentioned a few times that the funding isn't available, and I think the members of this committee were certainly well aware of that. I have pushed this issue and tried to get a better sense of what would be needed to understand how high that hill is to climb. I mean, frankly, I still don't think that the memo gets me what I was looking for, but I think that's probably my fault for not being clear enough about what I was looking for. So, I sort of consider it still on my plate.
Well, I'm happy to schedule a call with you, or anything I can do to help get more information.
No, I appreciate that.
It's not an easy one to solve. It's
I understand.
Even our attendance. So we're going to be posting building leader position, which is for opening our community centers. We've got the new Cooper Center opening. I know in this past budget cycle, the budget discussions were tight. There was a lot of priorities that needed to be considered, but staffing for Cooper was one of the big ones that we were really working on. And so it's just kind of trying to see where those priorities are and how much can be done at once. And we need more part-time staff to help in those building leader positions. And, that's customer service, unlocking and locking. And that can also help, stocking the bathrooms or checking the bathrooms throughout the day if there's paper towels on the ground, and, keeping it tidy, that kind of thing. But really those deep cleanings are what was kind of missing from the regular rotation in some of these buildings that are really, really well used.
Mr. Chair, it's Jonathan. We'd be happy to talk to you more in detail to really get at exactly what you're looking for. So we tried to cover it. The commissioner tried to cover it pretty comprehensively in this memo. So obviously building new bathrooms is an extremely costly endeavor. And then paying to provide custodial services for that as well. So let us know, if there's something different you're looking for. We'd be happy to research it.
Yeah, I don't think anyone was looking for construction of new facilities. I think that what led to this whole item, the origins of this, were all of the activities, mostly youth sports and youth other recreational activities that take place on our fields, and many of them that don't have any restroom facilities available. So it was sort of trying to get a feel for that, of how many fields at which we have recreational activities lack those facilities, and what would it take to try and put even temporary facilities at those fields. So it sort of started with, what does that look like? How many fields don't have facilities? And we got into a little bit of, some of the fields are at places where there are buildings that are open some of the time. Are they open some of the time or not? And we haven't really got our hands around which fields don't have any facilities. It looks like we started a pilot to start to have some new facilities available at fields where there weren't fields, but we felt that there was high use. And again, I think that's great. But before we can try to solve a problem, I'm trying to get my hands around what the magnitude of the problem is. And I don't yet have that information about what this looks like. What are some fields that we use regularly for soccer, for Little League, for flag football, for lacrosse, for, you name it, that lack those facilities when there are events occurring.
I think we had a lot of discussions with programs and services a few years ago when we worked to improve our field conditions and we set our field fees. I do think we could probably follow pretty closely what Derek has referred to as our premier fields. So those are the irrigated sites where we have a lot of the sport use. Those are the ones that you're mostly seeing on this list, which are the sites that have the portable units in most of the seasons. A little bit more limited in the summer, but even the summer, there's a lot of stuff that happens on the field. So I think kind of using that, and I can resend some of that information out about, what are those irrigated premier sites, and then our secondary field sites that are also important. I mean, they're practice spaces. So these a lot of times are at the elementary schools, not all the time, because like, for example, Cabot has the premier field complex right there. So that one does have the portable toilet, but a lot of the elementary school sites that are, maybe have a t-ball field or a small diamond for practices, the groups at those sites really do like shorter practices, and the kids just come in, have a practice and then leave, and they're not taking on that expense, which is understandable because it does add up when it gets to be so many sites. But I think that is probably the best way to think about where they are not versus where they are. And
it's like there's probably not a 3-hour game at Williams School on that terrible field that you love, Josh. So, that's a good example of one. But, down at Lower Falls, that's a different story. So,
right. Yep. Okay. Any other questions from anyone? Okay, my suggestion is to NA on this item at this time, because I don't think it's worth trying to bring it back up in the next 2 months. But I'm open to anything other committee members want to motion.
I think that makes sense.
Councilor Humphrey has moved NAN. Any discussion on that motion? Councilor Maliki.
Not on the motion so much, but I'm just curious for Commissioner Banks, what was the water cost projected to be for the splash park, and what did it turn out to be? And what happens to the water? Is that like a garden rate? We pay the garden rate, or?
Yeah, it's a water cost only, not sewer. And we had budgeted for 30,000 and we were closer to 50,000 for the season. So, there are some things we can adjust going into next year if we want to, the spray features can be adjusted. But we've kind of met to debrief on it and would really love to keep our hours of operation. We were 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. And we really saw a lot of use, and, just kind of saw that use where it was, the features were all running and, the kids were having fun. So sort of what you would want to see, but we can work on that budget a little bit.
Right, and we're looking at it was a guess in terms of the budget based on the design and some estimates from other locations, so. And then, we're gonna look at making adjustments to various pieces of equipment to see if, you can still have the same amount of fun with a little bit less water, so. Those will be ongoing. We knew this would be the case the first year, that there would be, a transition period, and trying to figure out exactly what the budget is gonna be would be a little challenging, so.
And where does the water go? Does it somehow get used to irrigate any plants or anything like that?
It will be tied into an irrigation system. It's going to be recaptured by Northland for the irrigation.
Yeah, they have a park and a planting area that will be adjacent to this, so.
But that's not built yet, I guess, right?
Not
They
yet.
have to build the rest of their infrastructure, but they have the catchment system and everything is there to tie it in. Yeah.
So it's going to the catchment system, obviously, but then
It is going
goes
into that,
as well.
yes, right. So it doesn't go like directly into stormwater or anything.
And from the catchment system, it's like, that's like a homeowner thing. It seeps into the ground.
Yes.
Yeah. Great. Okay, thanks.
Great, Councilor Humphrey has moved NAN. Seeing no further discussion. All those in favor of NAN, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, I believe that's 5-0 with Councilor Oliver hopping off to go over to the other committee for a moment. Okay, thank you, Commissioner Banks. Gio. All right, 3 quick items here, reappointments, before we get to a quick discussion. Item 214-25, the reappointment of Jane Brown to the Commission on Disability. Can I get a motion?
Move it.
Councilor Malachy has moved approval. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, I'm going to assume that's 5-0. Item 229-25, the reappointment of Sheila Butts to the Parks and Recreation Commission. Any discussion, motions? Councilor Farrell.
I would move to approve this.
Councilor Farrell has moved approval. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Again, 5-0, thank you. And then lastly, item 233-25, the reappointment of Thomas Elkine to the Newton Commonwealth Foundation.
Move approval.
I move approval.
Councilor Humphrey has moved. Councilor Humphrey has moved approval. Councilor Baker has seconded that motion. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. That wraps up our business for tonight. But as folks saw, there was a chair's note that at the conclusion of the meeting, we want to give an update on the screening and the process for the position of the city clerk / clerk of the council. We have been joined by Michelle Pizzi O'Brien, who is really going to handle giving the update, but basically take you through what we anticipate for a schedule and a little bit of the process moving forward. Okay, I know Ali Giuliani is also here from the law department, just in case there are any questions in terms of the legalities or the parameters around our interview process and how this works. So with that, let me turn it over to Ms. Pizzi O'Brien.
Thank you, Chair Krinsman. If it's okay, I'd like to share my screen.
100%. We love a good sharer.
Okay. All right. I'm going to hold on 1 second. I've done this so many times. You think I'd get it right the first time. Give me 1 second. I'm going to see if I can get this right. Okay.
And just while we're waiting, I want to tell people that the reference I was looking for earlier was the Blair Witch Project.
Yeah, I
don't know if
thought
anyone
that was
saw that
probably
movie.
what you were going for, but I was like, really?
I remember the Blair Witch Project.
Do I need
Councilor
to do
Malachy.
a break or
Yeah.
something?
Okay, so let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Okay. So first of all, Thank you, Councilor Kritzman, and all the other councilors that are here today. As we know, our former city clerk resigned earlier in the year to move closer to family. And while that is both wonderful for me to know that her move will enable her to spend time with her family. That also, results in us going about a recruitment process. I am happy for her, but there is a bonus to me with that, and it means that I get to work with the city council on a recruitment process, which is something that I don't often do, and I feel fortunate for that. So, but I understand that it's late and you've had a long meeting, so I'm going to kind of go through this quickly and get to what we need to decide next. So just in terms of a quick agenda, I'm going to quickly go through the scope of the position. We'll talk briefly about open meeting law, how it applies when a public body goes about the hiring process. Most of you have deep experience, I'm sure, with it, but it is something that sometimes elected officials just do once or here or there. So it's always helpful for kind of a quick reminder of that. I'll do a brief update on our recruitment activity to date. And finally, we'll talk about the next stages in the process. For those of you that don't know, the position of city clerk and clerk of the council are governed by our city ordinances, specifically chapters 4 and 6, which you'll get a copy of this, and I'm sure you've seen this, but it's linked in the PowerPoint. Chapter 4 sets out that the city council shall appoint and set the compensation of the clerk of the council. And it also outlines, the specific responsibilities of the position. And while it's not required, this chapter does allow that one person can hold both the clerk of the council and city clerk position simultaneously, which has been our practice in Newton for some time. Chapter 6 defines the role and appointment procedure for the city clerk, stating that if one person holds both positions, the appointment process should follow the same method. And it also describes the formal duties and powers of the city clerk. So how does open meeting law apply to this process? Other than that, it makes my job actually very unique, different, and exciting as compared to my private sector colleagues. It also governs this process, and it requires both the public body and its supporting HR department to manage the stages with a commitment to transparency and obviously compliance with the open meeting law. Generally, the open meeting law in this context requires that the public body make its appointment in open session. It does allow the public body to create a preliminary screening committee, which we did here, and I'll discuss in a minute. Further, the law allows the preliminary screening committee to utilize the executive session option for certain aspects of the process, such as conducting preliminary interviews with candidates. Since this committee, Programs and Services, will make a final recommendation to the full council of one candidate for appointment, this committee can't operate as the preliminary screening committee did, and as a result, we'll hold our interviews next week in open session. And some of you, I think, were part of that process with me when we went about this in 2021. So I'm not going to go through all of this, but the next two slides give you a brief overview of the timeline. I think it's helpful for you to see what's gone into this process. You'll get a copy of this, and some of these details will be in President Laredo's letter that you'll receive likely tomorrow or the next day. So I won't go through each one, but I will highlight some of the important steps. So, as I mentioned at the start, I want to say it was late March or early April. Our former city clerk gave her notice that she'd be leaving to live closer to home, closer to family. So from there, President Laredo and I met right away, and we worked quickly to implement a recruitment strategy. We updated the job description, we developed a salary range to use for posting the position, and the HR team developed a candidate profile and marketing brochure. All of this you'll receive copies of prior to your interviews next week. We also offered current city clerk staff the opportunity to meet with HR representatives to provide their individual insight on the position if they wanted to, on a voluntary basis. And I also met with other key stakeholders within the community to obtain their thoughts and their feedback as well. We posted it locally, regionally, and nationally in late April. Sorry, Councilor Kritzman, were you saying something? Oh, sorry.
I
The
wasn't, I don't know. if anyone else was.
preliminary, no problem. The preliminary screening committee began its work in early May, and they concluded their work actually as of last week. It feels like it's longer than that, but it was last week on August 26th. They'll be memorializing their recommendations in writing to you after today's meetings, part of our process. The finalists are currently undergoing our preliminary background check. And as you know, we'll be interviewing the finalists next week. So that's part of the next stage in our process. I just want to take 1 second to thank the counselors who participated in that process on the preliminary screening committee. Added up to about 11 meetings and dozens of hours of work on this process, one that I take very seriously and enjoy. And they were also super fun to work with. So what's next? What do we have to really decide on today? And I do apologize. I'm trying to rush through it because I know you've had a long meeting. We have to talk about these items on the screen. So we know when we're going to interview. We're going to interview next week. That's planned for next Thursday, September 11th. And as usual, I think the normal format for that is a hybrid meeting. So we'll have in person and on Zoom. All of our candidates will be in person, and the plan is to utilize room 204 in City Hall because it's a little bit of a bigger space. We'll need to discuss the schedule for that evening, but I am going to skip that for now as Chair Krinsman and I worked on a number of options together and narrowed it down to 2 that we'll go through in the next slide. But before that, regarding format, I'm recommending to this committee that the format include a period of time that's dedicated to prepared questions that will ask all the candidates, and then, an open period for follow-up questions from the committee and other counselors as time allows. And the last item regarding interview questions, I would recommend that the committee designate 1 member to work with HR and President Laredo to develop these questions. And if I understand it, Chair Krinsman plans to volunteer. Not sure, but I think so.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, I mean, maybe what I can do if I could jump in for a sec.
I was just about to say it's all you now. So if you want to do items 3 and 4, then we can jump to schedule.
Yeah, sort of following on. I don't know how many of you were here the last time we did this. It was just a few years ago, so I think most of you. But I think what we did worked out well, which was that we had those of you who have been a part of sort of a group interview process, if you've ever been on like a search committee for a school principal or, different areas, they tend to work in a similar fashion. And one of the things that we have found works well is to try and have obviously the same interview questions for each of the candidates. And part of the trouble or part of the, one of the factors to sort of work into your analysis of how to do that is thinking about the fact that it's done in an open meeting, and you sort of don't want different candidates to have a preview of what the questions are, what they might be. And so if we all discuss the questions in open meeting, it kind of tips your hat to the interviewees. And so one of the ways to work within that construct is if the body, our committee, designates someone to come up with the questions. Last time, I think I did that with Ms. Pizzi O'Brien, and we sort of had a suggestion about who would ask each question so that folks can have their question lined up for each of the interviewees. But then after the set questions, there's still time for sort of follow-up and more discussion so that each candidate can have their own interview, and you can sort of see where the discussion leads you. So my strong recommendation is that we follow that same process this time, if that's okay with the committee. And then the second thing, what we want to get to is 2 possible schedules for the 11th. I know we've all held September 11th for these interviews, and we now have, if I'm not mistaken, 4 candidates who are going to present to us. So we're actually going to be doing 4 interviews that night instead of what we had thought might be 2 or maybe 3. So it's a little tight. So I guess the sort of threshold question, are folks okay with that format? Are you okay with designating one of us? Are you okay with designating me to come up with the scripted questions for each of us?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Councilor Baker. Anyone else want to weigh in on that? Okay. So I'm assuming we're all okay with that as a process. for lack of a better term, or at least if there's no objection. Okay. Thank you. Ms. P.T. O'Brien, do you have okay, great. So one of the challenges we have, well, two of the challenges. One, September 11th, there is the ceremony at 6 o'clock that I think many of us want to attend. The second thing is that we are hopeful that we will get this done in advance of the September 15th council meeting, because we really want to move this process along for a number of reasons. Okay, so we've set aside the 11th. We have two options here. One is that we could start at 5 o'clock, break at 5:40. This is going to, we are recommended to be in person. There's always an online option, right? Zoom is always an option for anyone who wants to follow it. And certainly if any counselors can't be in the room, but our hope is that we'll be in the room for this. I believe all 4 candidates have made themselves available for September 11th and are going to be in person as well. So the hope is that we will all be in person on the 11th. So option 1 is to go from 5 to 5:45, break for folks to go over to Newton Center where the 9/11 ceremony is, come back after the ceremony and do the remaining 3 interviews. This gives each candidate 45 minutes. And as a quick reminder, after we conclude all 4 interviews, then we need time to deliberate because this committee still needs to make a recommendation to the full council. The second option for the 11th is to actually not start until after the 9/11 ceremony takes place in Newton Center. We wouldn't be able to start until about 7:15. But this schedule wraps us our interviews at about 10:15, and then we could begin our deliberations. The second thing I will say is that we have an option, and folks are encouraged to at least hold the time before the council meeting on the 15th, in case we need to continue our deliberations or haven't yet come to a decision. We can meet before the full council meeting, starting as early as we need to, I presume, to then try and make a recommendation to the council on the 15th. So those are kind of the options. Those are the thoughts that Ms. P.T. O'Brien and I had. Councilor Baker.
So my instinct is that I would oddly I prefer option 1 in a way, because I'm concerned there are no breaks in the system really for you're running serial interviews like this and then having to try and have a serious discussion at 10:15. I'm not sure is going to do justice to the candidates or the process. Now the problem is that the 9/11 event, as we've seen, is a worthy event, but I've seen it run longer than an hour at times. And I think if we do this and people want to go, we all have to have a commitment that we have to leave when we have to leave and be back and settled before so that the process doesn't get pushed back. I don't think that's fair to the candidates and to the process, but that's just my preference. I don't know how other members of the council feel.
Okay, thanks, Councilor Baker. Other members of the committee?
Right.
Councilor Maliki?
Yeah, I think I agree with Councilor Baker. I mean, how many times have we said we don't do our best work after 10 o'clock? So, and you know, if we can only stay an hour at the ceremony, we can only stay an hour. So
okay.
I'd go along with that.
Really less than an hour, because you got to have travel time and, you know, just getting settled.
Well, this builds in 15 minutes to get there and to get back and to spend an hour at Newton Center. But still, to your point, it might not be over. But Councilor Farrell?
I agree. I agree with Councilor Baker.
Okay. Councilor Humphrey, is it unanimous that we recommend option 1 here?
Yeah, I think it's a situation where if I were just picking it for myself, I would pick option 2, but I completely understand the points that everyone else is making in terms of the, wanting to be deliberating earlier in the evening, that kind of thing. I think, people are just going to have to say, like, I can be at the event for this amount of time and then I have to leave. I can't dilly-dally.
Okay, I think that's right. I think I'm more comfortable with option 1 for those reasons as well. I will also say, Councilor Baker, to one of the points I think you were sort of making, this also assumes that, from 7:15 to 9:30, we can just go straight through and no problem. And we may have to say, take a 5-minute bio break or take a 10-minute break because, folks are, having trouble concentrating or whatever it is. So I think with that understanding, we would still be able to move to deliberations before at least 10 o'clock that night under option 1. So
I just have one question about option 1.
Sure.
I realize that it's unusual and maybe it's just not possible for the members of the committee to do this or the candidates. But in a way, I'd almost like to have 2 candidates before the break and 2 candidates after. But I don't know if that's just too difficult because that means we'd have to start really sometime around 4:15, and that may not be feasible all around. But that's the only other thought I had.
My recollection, I forget when we came up with this, but my recollection is that day, due to actual day work constraints, I wasn't able to start before 5.
Oh, right. No, then
If everyone
it's
else is, I don't necessarily
non-starter.
want to hold things up. But
No. Okay, fair enough.
And Counselor Krinsman, if I can add, if it brings the committee any level of comfort, and Counselor Baker, I typically always build breaks in. I don't like to do interviews back to back like this. I like the interviewers and the candidates to be comfortable. But in order to enable you not to be doing this until 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night, that's what we're looking at. But to the point of bringing you some comfort, I will have HR staff with me that evening and they stay in contact with the candidates the entire time. And they shuffle them around, so they're in appropriate places, not interacting with each other unnecessarily, and they're comfortable as they're waiting and informed if there's any delays. So we will handle that for you if by some chance the committee says we're desperate for a break, we need to delay the start of candidate 3 by 10 minutes or whatever it is. It's very important to me that you're also comfortable, and we will prepare the night with such detail you won't have to bring anything with you. I don't want you to have to drag materials with you back and forth to the 9/11 ceremony. I want you to stay focused on that event when you're there and this event when you're here. So we'll make sure you're completely prepared with what you need and you can leave it and come and go. So we'll do the best we can to make it as comfortable a process as possible.
Councilor Baker?
I just have one follow-up. I assume that that includes food and fluids for the committee at some point and the staff and the candidates in the interim, because we're talking about going straight through the dinner hour.
Counselor Krinsman, if you'd like, we can talk about that after and make a decision. Okay. Everybody knows that I always like to keep our committee fed. So that's something I'm always open to, but we can talk about that after.
Yeah, let's do that. That's a good idea, actually.
Great idea.
Wasn't something I thought about, but yeah, we'll take care of that, Councilor Baker.
Especially starting at 5 o'clock. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll figure something out. Yeah, I mean, my feeling on this is that it's not ideal, but it's sort of the best we can do under the circumstances. So it sounds like the committee's in agreement.
Yep.
Okay, so we'll go forward with option 1. Again, please just hold your time before the council meeting on the 15th in the event that we don't get through our deliberations and aren't able to recommend, a single candidate on that night. We should reconvene our committee again before the full council so that we can still try to recommend a candidate to the full council at the 15th. Okay.
Sorry, just very briefly, if we do have to do that on the 15th, the earliest I can participate is 7 p.m. and it would be remote.
Okay.
I'm not certain of when the full council meeting begins.
7:45.
Okay. Well,
I remain hopeful that we can conclude our business that night, and I'd like to see us try to do that. So.
And we'll do our best to develop questions that, bring forward fruitful information that'll help you deliberate and make a solid decision. And that, the information will be shared with you in advance. You'll get a communication from President Laredo as chair of the preliminary screening committee. And this goes to the next slide, which is just kind of closing up this conversation so you know what the next steps are. So That communication will come to you with, copies of candidate resumes and materials, including a writing assignment that we ask the candidates to do and a presentation, as well as their application and their cover letter and resume. So you'll receive that as well as backup information. You'll get all of that electronically, but again, we will provide that to you the day of, so you don't need to print or bring anything with you, and you'll receive this information from me. We're also going to include some information, some guidance from HR on how to conduct professional and lawful employment interviews. I'm sure the majority of us have done those, but we are, representing the city of Newton as an employer when we're in this process. So I like to take that additional step just to remind anyone who's on our hiring committees, of that process and what goes into a professional and lawful employment interview. We'll work with the city clerk to post the meeting. We will have to post that there will be a break. We'll keep the Zoom open, but your committee clerk and I have worked very closely. And in fact, she deserves also a sincere thank you. Katie, thank you. I can't thank you enough. You've been incredibly helpful. Along with Ally, who is here to answer any legal questions, but it doesn't look like we'll need her, but thank you for that. And we'll work with Chair Krinsman on the interview questions, and hopefully you like the questions we assigned to you, and you'll receive that as well in advance so you can take a look at it. And then we'll just coordinate with the candidates and begin the process for the final stages in our recruitment process. So that's it. If anybody else has any questions for me, I'm here.
I have one.
Councilor Baker. I got Councilor Malcolm.
So I understand that, and I appreciate being reminded about the scope of questions we can ask and having the questions prepared in advance. There is the deliberation session itself. And again, I want to just be sensitive to sort of how we have that conversation as well, because in that context, we are not just asking the questions of the candidate and hearing their answers. We're actually comparing candidates, and people who are willing to come forward and put themselves out to take on this role. I want to make sure we honor as well as possible the fact that they have done so, and not in a way that, and I think our past practice has done this, but I just want to be sensitive to the fact that ultimately we're making comparisons in some sense because we've got candidates to choose from. So if there's further guidance that occurs to you on the deliberation conversation, it may be helpful to me and maybe others to have some of that in addition to how we conduct the questions in the individual interviews.
That is a wonderful point, Councilor Baker, and I appreciate you saying that. You hit the spot with me because the deliberation matters just as much as the engagement with the candidate. I'll follow up with Ally because I don't think our guidance actually addresses the deliberation process, but we get better every day. So we'll talk about that and see if we can put something in there that'll be available for the committee as well as other members of the council who might attend. It's a wonderful recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Malky.
Yeah, I was just wondering if the binder or whatever we're getting with the writing samples, are we going to get that ahead of time? I just so we have time to read them before the.
Yes, good question, Councilor. We'll send that will come in President Laredo's communication, so you'll receive that in advance. The questions will likely come a little after. We did give the candidates I had a conversation or an email exchange with all of them over the last couple of days. We gave them from our interviews last week a couple of days courtesy to let their current employer know, because once we share that information, it becomes public. So we give that courtesy to them in advance. And the deadline we gave was, that we would be making this information public as of tomorrow. So I'm hoping to find some time tomorrow to get to coordinate with President Laredo and get that communication out. So you'll have the reference materials and the application materials for all 4 candidates within the coming days. The interview questions will likely come a little bit after that.
Councilor Baker.
I'm sorry to just ask things that I should remember, but I can't quite. Again, the process of the due diligence where you go and get references, there are references supplied, but often in my experience, there are questions asked of people who are not necessarily on the reference list, but might be prior employers. Can you just give us any guidance about what the scope of that process is? Because we obviously are not going to be doing that. That's going to be done by someone else. But again, if we shouldn't be doing it also, we should know that as well. You know, we don't want sort of road calls to the various supervisors saying, tell me about this person or something, and then other people don't, you know, it can get on a little out of hand. So any guidance you can give us about the reference check process would be helpful.
That is absolutely included. We discourage members of our committees to, in fact, we redact any kind of contact information and personal information. Part of that is because of the public records law and open meeting and all that, but also to limit who is making phone calls to candidates, you know, former employers or whatever it might be. The city needs authorization to make those communications. So part of our communication to the members of the council will include that. That said, again, to give you a level of comfort, we have a very, very thorough background check, and I'll include the details of what that background check looks like in the materials that I send you, Councilor Baker, as well as everybody else, so you can see what that entails. We use a third party to do that for multiple reasons, including the Fair Credit Reporting Act, but we use a third party who does that background check, and those are pending right now. I'm hoping they will be done by the time you meet with the candidates, but they will highlight or flag any issues of concern, and that includes reference checks that are done through them and through the Human Resources Department. So we will take care of that process for you, and I'll send you details of that when we get to that stage.
Super, thank you.
Councilor Humphrey.
Well, I was going to say, I think my suggestion for any of us, whether we've done this process before or not, is just pretty much defer to what the HR department and law department have prepared for us. The process is a little bit on rails, but that's to keep us in bounds and not wandering off the track. So we don't get ourselves into trouble if we follow the questions that they have vetted. And if there's something that you think is an area of concern that hasn't been addressed by the questions, probably go talk to the HR and law department first privately before going off and doing your own thing, which is probably not the appropriate thing to do in this situation. And I think it worked pretty well last time, even though it's a little bit of an odd setup and format to have to do this in public. I think we were able to have very respectful deliberations comparing the 3 candidates in that case. And then there was, I think, 2 candidates for the comptroller and so forth, right? And, you know, we're not being mean about people's applications or their resumes or whatever. We're just saying, here's what I think works for us and here's what I think doesn't work for us. And probably even if we didn't hire them for this position, they'd be great in some other position and maybe that would be a better fit for them.
I appreciate that, Councilor Humphrey. If you can see my background, there's a sign that says stay calm and let HR handle it. If any member of the committee or any member of the council has any questions, you know, about the process or about what to do or not to do or anything like that, I encourage any of them to contact me. I'm happy to help in any way I can. Actually, I'll stop my share. How's that?
Thank you. Ms. Giuliani, I know you were just here to answer questions. Was there anything we didn't talk about that you want to add or make sure that we have all heard before going to the next phase?
No, I think Michelle's got it covered. Michelle and I are in constant contact about the schedule, and we are also working very closely with the your committee clerk in the clerk's office to make sure that this is smooth. We'll have draft orders ready to go. We'll have all the items that need to be docketed along the way. You don't need to worry about that.
Great. Okay, if there are no other questions.
I've got just one comment.
Go ahead, Councilor Baker.
Again, I'm trying to remember backwards a bit, but I think that several searches back, there was a former Councilor Johnson had helped us understand the difference between experience and competencies. And I think that part of what we were doing there that I think was helpful is that sometimes someone might not have the direct experience in a role, but they have the ability to grow into a role. And that's always a challenge to figure out, so I guess I just want to mention that as you're framing the questions, because we're looking at people from a variety of perspectives, and their experience is obviously important, but we're also trying to figure out, can they manage and grow into the role that they're going to have because it's obviously not one they would have had before. So again, Ms. O'Brien is well versed in all of this, and I'm sure will steer us through that process, but I just want to sort of make the distinction because I think it's an interesting perspective that was illuminating to me the time we did this with Mr. Olson, for example.
If I could just add one more point, I think Councilor Baker and I have become fast friends over the years because he always adds comments that I enjoy hearing. And what you're saying, I think likely came from a process prior to my time. However, when we did do the comptroller process, you brought that point up, Councilor Baker, and I put together a document regarding experiences versus competencies and hard and soft skills, because that is a very good point. For as long as I've been doing this, I have met city clerks, successful city clerks that have had varying backgrounds, and they don't always have had years and years of experience. They didn't wake up and say, Mom, I want to be a city clerk. It's typically something that organically happens, and they can be very, very successful. I've seen city clerks that are attorneys, city clerks that have been engineers, city clerks that have managed been a manager at a supermarket. It's unbelievable to see the background that comes along with that. So I will take the extra step of putting together some competencies. So in addition to the job description and a candidate profile, that'll help guide the committee a bit and what truly is important in identifying a successful candidate for this position.
Thank you very much. Your memory is better than mine. Thank you.
It was helpful with the comptroller process. I remember you bringing it up and we did it and everybody really thought it was helpful. So we've actually been adding that step here or there, Councilor Baker, because of your suggestion the last time. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Okay. If there are no more comments, I think actually the next time we're getting together is on the 11th. So Katie will have to put out notice, obviously. I'll work on that, but we'll notice the meeting for 5 o'clock on September 11th, because that's what we've decided. So again, we're going to be at City Hall. Hopefully everyone can make it. There will be a Zoom option, right? Don't panic. But again, I think our preference is to be in person and be in a room with these candidates who are all going to be there in person. So see you all at City Hall, 5 o'clock on the 11th.
12 minutes before, if we could. We want to start right at 5.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Okay.
Thank you all so much. I'm looking forward to it.
With that, we adjourn. Thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Night.